All right, I'd like to welcome to this edition of In the Conference Room with Mark S. Lee. Thank you for joining me. I want you to sit back and relax and enjoy the conversation as we do in each and every single week with business leaders from across the great city of Detroit, the state of Michigan, as well as across the country. And today is no exception. Very busy day, and I'm so glad she took time out of her calendar to join me. Congresswoman Haley Stevens, as she's representing Michigan's 11th Congressional District. Hey, Stevens, thank you, Congresswoman, for joining me in the conference room. How are you on this busy
I'm
day?
great. I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And there are two things I really want to get into as part of the conversation today. One is the MI Hope agenda, and we'll unpack that briefly, as well as the second one is the IDA Act, the
hmm
IDEA Act as well. So why don't we start with the Hope agenda, the MI Hope agenda?
Yeah, so
Exactly what is it?
yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. I'm fired up to talk about it, as a matter of fact,
Absolutely.
because this is built off of work that I have prioritized during my 4 terms in the United States House of Representatives. This has been about equitable investment, standing up for neighborhoods, communities who sometimes get overlooked, to make sure that every zip code is getting the support that they need, that we're getting our fair share of federal tax dollars in, and very specifically, I'm looking at minority businesses. I'm looking at black owned businesses and wealth creation. I'm looking at education funding and making sure that every single school can get equal funding. We've got a problem in this country with, gaps in funding, unfunded mandates around special education. And so now that I'm putting up my hand to be Michigan's next United States Senator, what I want to see is an accountability agenda. I want to hit the ground running with a roadmap, but I also want that piece of paper, well, several sheets of paper out there that showcases, hey, Haley, this is what you did, and this is what you said you were going to do when you got to the United States Senate. Now that you're there, let's start acting on it. And so when we look at how we want to address some issues with housing and get more affordable housing and just housing built. I've got a housing package that I introduced. How are we going to get that done? We got to push for that in the bills that come down, because a lot of times it's a big bill, right? And so you got to say, well, wait a minute. If we're doing infrastructure, why aren't we tying that in to some of the things that have gotten overlooked? And so this agenda, my Hope agenda, is something that I have written alongside faith leaders, community leaders, longtime mentors, and I just saw this as a culmination of how I want to couch my campaign and how I want to speak to every zip code in Michigan.
And as you talk about the equitable federal investment, certainly we know that there are challenges these days. And I love the fact you also referenced the business community and the importance within the Black community. It seems like, Congresswoman, that there's been a sense of disinvestment over the years, and this is providing hope in terms of investment. Talk about that disinvestment and how you're bridging that gap into investment, if you will.
Yeah, you're hitting the nail right on the head, because we see right now the wrecking ball coming through the federal government, right? The president had billionaire Elon Musk prancing around the stage with that chainsaw, freaking people out about their earned benefits and from Social Security to VA assistance. And what we also saw them try and take the wrecking ball to is the Minority Business Development Administration. And I saw that happening, and I said, we can't have that, because I know one of the keys to economic success, who we are in Michigan. Yes, we are a manufacturing destination and we're an innovative industrial place, but surrounding all that is the mom and pop shops, the other small businesses, the services that come in. And even, when we say manufacturing in Michigan, we sort of think, oh my gosh, it's the big autos, the big three, of course, but all the suppliers that tie into it, the logistics, And so when I saw this administration saying that they were going to cut the Minority Business Development Administration, I said, we need this bill that I have called the ID Act. And this is to invest, to take capital investment and say, we're putting it into black owned businesses. That capital that needs to come in. Because what we want to help create is generational wealth. And everybody knows, when they're starting a business, it costs money. And I
You
can't
know,
tell you how many business owners I've talked to in that space. Sorry, Mark, you're firing me up.
no, this is an important conversation because Detroit has over 62,000 small businesses in the city, and of which over 50,000 are minority-owned businesses. You can imagine expanding out to Wayne County, across the state of Michigan, Oakland County as well. That's a significant economic generator for our city, our state, and our region as well. And Congresswoman, I got to ask you because I do a lot of, as you know, I'm always being asked for my opinion on various media outlets here in Detroit. And the number one question I get is, as it relates to small business, particularly minority-owned business, access to capital is the number one issue. And
Hmm.
so I'm getting a sense that this is another way of addressing that challenge as well for small minority-owned businesses.
Yeah, and that's something, Mark, that I learned when I worked in the Obama administration during his first term in the Great Recession. We saw that firsthand. What whacked our small business community was that lack of access to capital. And so, look, folks don't need another loan, right? They don't need, just another takeout. We need ROS, return on spend. So yeah, I want to take the taxpayer dollar and meet what's going on in our neighborhoods, continue to grow. And continue to inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs too. I want these young kids, who I see all around, with good ideas, thinking about how they can start something one day. And if they've got someone in their family or they, have a parent and, sometimes it's a multi-generational pass down. So you've got your finger on the pulse of the business community.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
is, it's about capital. And look, we're still in the 2020s, right? Beginning of this decade, that was another major setback. And yet we saw, these grants, some of the
yeah.
amelioration efforts that worked. Keep it going. And that talks about equitable investment. When you got high interest rates, those grant dollars, those capital grant dollars, which is what my legislation is, it will administer grants to black owned businesses for capital. Capital. That thing's going to pay for itself.
What is this? What is the status of the legislation, if I could ask?
So I've introduced it. It's been referred to committee, but my plan is to take it to the Senate. And I think in that upper chamber, in that higher perch, and I'm going to tell you, I really believe this can be bipartisan because people know when we're investing in this way, when we're spurring growth in this way, it's the tide that rises the boats. I spent a lot of time with researchers, with administration officials, obviously with the business community. Just the other day I was doing shop talk down at Dixon's, which was great. A lot of good commentary and a lot of good issues from incredible community members. And some of this too is I'm the daughter of small business owners. I saw my parents go through this, and we're talking about seed funding. We're talking about that access to capital. And when I mentioned at the start of this decade with COVID, I mean, what popped out to me was 8 in 10 of the businesses that were at risk of closing because of the virus were black owned businesses.
Hmm.
That is a wrong that we need to right. I still feel that way.
Yeah. And I would tell you that you look at black-owned businesses, the average small business owner has less than $10,000 in the bank.
Right.
I mean, let that sink in. And that what that means, that's up to 2 weeks of operating dollars. And within that window of opportunity, if that goes away, that business is not going to survive as well. So I think I love to hear you talking about this equitable investment because it's critical in our city, it's critical in our region, it's critical in our state because we know that 90% of the jobs created in this country come from small businesses. And within the
Mm-hmm.
Black community, these are the backbones of our communities as well. So I got to ask you in terms of the other part of your discussion or the Hope Agenda, the My Hope Agenda talks about public safety. I want to give you a chance to address that issue. We know that that's adversely impacted within the Black community. Uh, give us your thoughts as we begin to wrap up, because I know you're tight on time.
Yeah, well, I'll share this. The community violence intervention programs that we have implemented in Michigan, Detroit, into Flint, of course, Pontiac has those as well. You know, I've seen firsthand how it works, and yet we need federal partnership. We need those DOJ programs, funding programs to come in. You know, we saw the president saying, "Oh, I'll deploy the National Guard." Well, that's when he's cutting community violence intervention. That's a mentorship program. You know, again, that also ties in to the small business activity because we want people building paths for themselves and we want mentors in neighborhoods. And, you know, I think that Detroit has had a lot of success with this. It's a best practice. Let's keep it going and let's make sure our federal dollars are meeting those public safety needs.
And I know as we think about public safety is always the number one issue, not just in Detroit, but obviously across the entire state. As you've talked about this bill, or this part of the bill with your counterparts and your peers, what's been the overall reaction to it, feedback?
Look, people want to see this. And it's a conversation starter, absolutely, but
Mhm.
it's also to meet what's going on in neighborhoods and communities. You know, when I was doing shop talk, we're right there on, this at Dixon's, you know, surrounded by a lot of great shops. You know, then sometimes I'm driving through neighborhoods and I'm thinking, and I'm talking to the local officials, and they're trying to get businesses to move in. You know, when we look at our downtown development authorities, and sometimes that downtown development authority, you know, they're trying to attract a small business onto a neighborhood strip. I want to help accelerate that. I want to meet the moment at the community level, at the neighborhood level, and what's going on with people. You know, a lot of times, you know, things like starting a small business feel out of reach. If you, especially if you know, so it's like, hey, let's get this, you know, that program going, and then tied into, you know, the community violence intervention, which is so important. Pathways, alternative pathways. You know, I want to see STEM in our schools. I want to see CVI fully funded. I went right to the floor of the House and talked about it, and you better believe I'm going right to the floor of the Senate, and I'm going to bring that there too.
Well, this is awesome. As we wrap up, I want to thank you very much for your time, but I want to give you a chance to give your website out where people get more information about the My Hope, certainly the agenda, the IDEA Act, IDEA Act. If I can speak this morning, get more information about that as well. What's the website people can go to get
Yeah,
more
give us your
information?
feedback, plug in, check it out. Haley, Haley, 4FORMI.com. Haley4MI.com. Let us know your reactions to the Hope Agenda. Give us your thoughts. This is an exciting moment for Michigan. I'm fired up about what I see in Detroit. Detroit needs a senator, the city of hope.
Well, I would tell you, I can see the excitement in your face. I know you're very busy. I really do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule, particularly today and always. And thank you for joining me in the conference room, Haley Stevens. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you. Good to see you.
Absolutely. All of you go out and make it a great day, make it a great week. We will check you out next time in the conference room with Mark Espy. And don't forget to share this interview and many others. Just subscribe as you go to the YouTube page as well. We'll talk to you soon. Take care, everyone. Have a good one.